You get hit with ransomware and you're going to lose money instantly. And then you
Yep.
lose reputation. And the reputation part you is harder to get back.
Welcome to the CNL podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of IT and security professionals to uncover their experiences, challenges, and best practices in today's ever-evolving tech landscape. I'm your host, Cedric, also known as your cyber expert. And today, I'm thrilled to welcome Michael Maitner, Director of Information Technology at Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing. Thanks for joining us today, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Cedric. Thanks for having me on board.
No problem. I know we caught off a little bit offline and last week. You're definitely a fun person. I know a great personality that'll be on the show. And hopefully, our viewers get the experience that.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Can you tell us? Let's start off. Like, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the world of IT and security?
Yeah, so like many of us, I started in retail and fast food and spent 12 years there. And it was through actually one of the fast food restaurants that I was able to get my first help desk position. Did the college. I basically just pestered the director of technology there for the franchise. And I got my year of experience, and then I moved on to a managed service provider and started help desk there, and then move up through your sysadmin, your senior sysadmin, your engineer, network
Mhm.
engineer, and all the way to where I am now, which is Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing, and started as sysadmin there, and then moved up to supervisor, manager, senior manager, and now director. So
Okay.
I've seen the entire building of Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing. When I first started, there was more networking and server equipment in my basement than we had in the company, and now we have multiple locations and clusters, and it's just wonderful.
Okay, fair enough. So that's awesome. You've been in the trenches for quite some time. You've worked your way up. You've done your time. That's
Yep.
good to hear. And it's funny you said, you like many of us started in the restaurant world. That's exactly where I started. I was a bus boy at Texas Roadhouse, worked my way up to a server. Then I was thinking with all the technology. I saw some guys working online on a TV show doing cyber, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So I started the college route. Then I was like, you know what? No, let me just go join an MSP as well. And
Yeah.
the years, I'm sure you could probably agree and resonate with this. The time that you spend at an MSP versus just at one organization, it's like night and day, right? Because you're
Yep.
touching so many different things.
Yep. Yeah. My time at the MSP really set me up for success for the next role and where I am today. Because you're right, you touch so many things, so many different systems, you go to so many different places, you interact with so many different people. It's at the time you don't realize just how beneficial it is.
Yep, you don't because it's something for me. It felt like drinking from a fire hose, but eventually, over time, with repetition, it got better. Where it's like, okay, this fire, let's go put it out this way. This happened, okay, we're gonna handle it this way.
Yep.
Was there a specific event or inspiration that pushed you towards this field?
I fell into the ideology. Okay, some people might laugh.
We like
So
laughing.
back in the day, there was this company called ITT Tech. Some might remember, some might not, depending on where you fall on the life experience scale. But I fell into that commercial, and I spent some years there.
Are you talking about the guy who's like, "What are you doing right now with your life? You're sitting on the couch."
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, one of those. Yep, I fell
that
into one
that
of those.
That commercial lives rent free in my mind, and I think almost everyone in my immediate friend group knows of that commercial because I've kind of become that guy for my friend group. Like I'm trying to get them all into IT and cybersecurity, and that's how
So
they say I
basically,
sound.
I fell into, hey, this is where the money's at. Go do this. So that's where I basically started. I'm not ashamed to say it.
Yeah.
I was told that's where the pot of gold is, and that's where I went.
Hey, listen, when I was first breaking in the field, my stepdad was a network engineer, and he was trying to get me into IT for a while. And I did a day at work with him one time. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm just sitting at him. He's staring at a terminal all day long. I didn't really even know what all he was doing, right? I didn't truly understand the nuances of configuring routing tables and protocols and ACLs and all that good stuff. So I was discouraged. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I don't care how much money it is. But then after working at that restaurant on my feet, busting tables and whatnot, working for basically minimum wage, I'm like, you know what? That job behind that desk in AC and not standing on my feet all day actually doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah. Yep. And then I don't know if this happened to you or not, Cedric, but then you learn that all the hours that you spent waiting those tables and dealing with the public and all that, those skill sets actually come back to benefit you tenfold in your
Exactly.
new role as you interact with different people and, not just your colleagues, but, the people above you and below you and your customers and that kind of thing. You retain all of those skills. I was actually pleasantly surprised by how much I was able to use those skills in my, technical profession.
Likewise, likewise, and I always recommend anybody with a customer service background to never feel discouraged that you can't get into the field because the people skills, the soft
Yeah.
skills, I feel like they're just as important, if not more important than the technical skills. Because if people don't want to work with you, then you're not going to get too far, right? They're not going to, you're not going to be able to get people to move when you need them to move or to understand why they need to be doing
Yeah.
something. Just being able to be personable and build that rapport with the business units and customers that you're working together with is just as important as the technical skills.
Exactly. Especially when we start talking about cybersecurity. People are just inherently lazy. I am. Um, that it happens. Um, so as you talk to folks, you just have to word it in the way that they understand where, hey, I understand that your 12 to 14 character password is really, is hard for you, but this is why we do it. So let's come up with some theories and methodologies as to why it's not so hard for you and something that you can remember.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Like you want to keep your job, right? It's not even like a threat to fire them, but it's like, hey, if we all get popped here, ransomware, whatever the case may be, we
Yeah.
could be facing losses that warrant the company to cut complete departments out,
Yep.
right? People lose their jobs, or if not, if they don't go completely belly under, right? So it's
Yeah.
sometimes just finding a way to not. I hate using the word FUD for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But sometimes you gotta play that card because that's the trump card that some people really understand. And especially like when it comes to some of the executives, all they care about is, well, let me not say every executive, but majority of the executives that I've had the experience and pleasure of working together with, they translate the risk into dollars. So they need to understand what is really the risk there when it comes to the dollars. Okay, yeah, this person, the reason why we need a 14 character passwords is because we don't want anybody just setting any willy-nilly 8 character password that any attacker off the street can guess or brute force and then use that to then pivot into our systems and wreak even more havoc.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually interesting that you brought up, we refer to them as the E team at Graham, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I've been at Graham for 9.5, almost 10 years now.
Mhm.
And the E team that I've had the pleasure of working with have been so supportive of our cybersecurity footprint
Mhm.
and the policies that we put in place. They do care about, okay, if this happens, how much can it cost us? And, what do we spend to mitigate? And is spending that worth the amount of money that it could potentially cost us? And right. I mean, we have the conversations about cybersecurity insurance, almost every year,
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. But I've been so blessed to have an E team that actually care about not only just the dollars, but about, the human factor as
Yeah.
well.
And that's good because you need that buy-in. And what I tell whenever I'm consulting any organizations, I tell them if you don't have the buy-in of your leadership, this is all a checkbox exercise, right? You're
Yeah.
just checking the box, and you're not really going to move the needle, especially if the when it comes push comes to shove, because sometimes you have to balance that user experience with innovation and
Yep.
security and all these other different factors. And if the leadership doesn't really understand the priority of how security really runs the shop, because without security, all those earnings, those years of profit that
Yeah.
you've
It all vanished.
had, it can be all gone in an instant.
Yeah.
But that's good to see. that you do have that buy-in, because some I know there's been some shops that I've dealt with where I knew year after year I come back same findings over and over again. It was just like nothing's really being done, and it's like, okay, you just want to pay us to just come keep telling you what you're doing wrong, but you're not going to do anything about it. Yeah, okay, this is that type of organization, like, and majority of the times that same organization got popped by something we called out at some point in time
Yep.
before. And then they start to take things seriously because there's a change in the E team, right?
Yep.
And leadership at that point.
Yep.
Everyone wants to play the blame game when something goes down, right?
Well, it's I always tell people if you're going to buy a generator, buy it when the power's out because the moment the power comes back on, nobody cares about that generator anymore. So,
Yep. Yep.
um,
It's funny you mentioned that because we just had a hurricane. I'm here in the Orlando, Florida area. We had hurricanes not too long ago, and I had a generator. I bought a generator previously when the power went out, but our power went on, and I was like, all right, I haven't used the generator in like 2 3 years. It just stayed on the porch with
uh-huh.
old gas in it at that too. So when I actually needed it when the power went out, when the hurricane came, I was kind of in the doghouse there because the carb had blocked up with the bad gas, the old gas, and it was a great analogy, that I just thought of when you just said that. It's the same thing when organizations have incident response plans or plans in place. If you're not testing these things or people really don't know, by the time you go to use it, it could be
Yep.
too late.
So I wanna touch on that actually because right now we're currently redoing our business continuity disaster recovery plan and we're looking at our incident response plan
Mhm.
and my own personal experience going through these things when people start talking about testing and you start thinking it has to be hard and it has to involve like every single aspect of the company all the time and it's going to be like a week and you're never going to get people to be involved and then you just kind of like say well I'm never going to be able to do it so I just won't do it. It doesn't have to be some grandiose process that you go through. Just start small. We're starting small. We're
Mhm.
testing the things that we can test in the IT department ourselves.
Mhm.
And then we have a couple of departments that we talk to that we're able to get on board. And they're like, you know what, we can, yes, we can dedicate like this person for like 5 hours, this week. And I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
great, awesome. So it doesn't have you don't have to eat the elephant all at once. Small
Yep.
bites.
Yep, yep, and I definitely agree with that. I try to tell teams first before you try to do, a full interrupt tabletop exercise, workshop it first. Like put certain scenarios, put multiple choice certain scenarios. You don't have to trick people and saying, one is wrong, but four plausible scenarios that you could potentially take action on, right? With different ways that you would take action on, and just talk with your team, meet with your team for
Yep.
about an hour or so or some change, and go through these scenarios and see what your team's mindset is on what you would do during that said scenario based off of the IR processes that you have in place or that you are identifying in real time that you don't have in place
Right.
during that exercise.
Yeah, and that's something you can just do with your own teams.
Yep.
You don't need a mandate from a higher level or anything. You just be like, you know what, we haven't done this in a while or ever.
Hmm.
Why don't we just take an hour when we normally do our whatever meeting, and we're just going to talk about, okay, if this happens, what do we do? Go,
Yep.
and then you just sit and you let your folks that do the frontline or day to day stuff say, all right, well, if this happens, I'm gonna do X, and then what happens? Well, then Y, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. And then you can flush out to see exactly what did you have established processes for, what don't you, and then now you know where the gaps are from the exercise. And then now you got some good work streams that are very valuable to the business. It's going to give you a good return on investment if something were to
Yeah,
ever happen. We had a guest, his name is Michael Reese. His show hasn't been released yet, probably later this week, but 14 years worth of law enforcement experience, moved over to the cyber side. And he actually educated me on this game called, I think it's Breaches and Ladders. I have to go back and look at it, but it's like a role play scenario game where you can spend that hour and you shuffle the deck, I guess, and you get certain scenarios that are just coming out, and then you workshop with your team right from there. And I
Yeah,
think that's
nice.
a great idea. And I'm actually bringing that to our team in house here, for us to help think of different scenarios. Because sometimes, like, you think of some scenarios and it might be off the wall or whatnot, or just
Yep.
some regular basic scenarios. But with this game, it kind of helps you out, put some a little bit more structure around that.
I tend to go when I'm coming up with scenarios, I tend to go with the easiest, simplest, dumbest cause ever. So, I mean, we're going back to like the USB drive found in the lobby. We're doing that, or we're doing a maintenance guy comes in and gets escorted because he's a third party, and then the escort leaves, and then he's left alone in this room, right? So,
Network jack.
those kinds of things, I tailor it to where we are and what we do and things that, I may or may not have seen. And then we just go from there. So it's not some, abstract idea that somebody from overseas, hacks into our firewall and this and that and the other, which is a possibility, but it's the common, more likely everyday things.
Mhm. Yep. Now, most like, especially like you just said, with the USB found in the parking lot or in the lobby, someone's like, "Oh, nice USB. Let me take this. Let's see what's on it." Plugs
Yep.
it in. The whole company goes down with ransomware now.
Well, curiosity killed the cat, and people just like to know what are on things.
Yep. Yep. If you're gonna do that, don't do that in our corporate environment. Don't do that on your personal computer.
Yep.
Don't ruin the IT and security team's weekend or Christmas at
Yeah.
that. But yeah, just kind of switch gears here. So, you've been in the trenches for quite some time, right? And you worked your
Yep.
way up, and this is very great to see. Were there any challenges that you faced while you were trying to break into cybersecurity and or climbing the ladder into the field?
So climbing the ladder, it was kind of misled in the fact that I thought that if I just got better at what I did, I would just automatically, move up, right? It's like, I'm really good at this particular techie thing. How come I can't get anywhere? Well, that's because that particular techie thing no one understands.
Yeah.
So it's learning more than just what it is that you do on a day to day. It's like, okay, a new user starts, fine. I got the laptop, set the laptop up, install the software, hand it off to the user, tell them how to use it, all that good stuff, right?
Hmm.
But what goes further into that? So I've often had conversations as I was moving up at Grand River about with our accounting folks with like, okay, so we hire this person and we pay them a dollar amount. What are the other costs involved in that person working? Like, what is healthcare cost? Like, retirement, medical. What are the costs that I don't see or that people don't understand? I want to learn what that is.
The
So
business.
I started having those conversations with people that were outside of, I guess, my scope of what I did there because
Mhm.
I wanted to learn and I wanted to know how everything fit together.
Yep.
Because I didn't want to just know that, okay, for me personally, if I'm going to hire somebody in my department and I'm going to pay them X number of dollars a year, that's not what they cost to the company. They cost more to the company than actually that. And understanding that can help you understand, why you may get denied to hire somebody.
Hmm.
And it's not just, I want to pay them $70,000. Why can't I hire them? It's because 70 plus your 20 or 30, it actually adds up to a lot. So
Yep.
it's understanding that yes, you have great technical skills and everyone loves your technical skills and you're known as the wizard of the IT world because you can fix anything and it's magic and wonderful. That's great. But show folks that you also understand the business side
Hmm.
so that you can talk the business side. And you don't got to be super fancy. I am not fancy. I don't math well, hardly at all. You put a bunch of numbers in my face and I have a hard time with that. Um, but you just break it down and you talk high level and then you start building your reputation of knowing, hey, we've got this guy in IT that yeah, he's really great at technical stuff, but he also understands how it fits in with the business
Hmm.
and what the business goals are. And then you start learning, okay, the business goal is to have X number of locations or that we want to build this new production facility in so many years. Fine, great. Then you start going, okay, we have this facility, what can I put in it that is, effective, it's secure, it may cost a lot of money or it may not. kind of getting off of this branch a little bit. I've had lots of chats with my direct supervisor about equipment and what do we buy and licensing and that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
sometimes we can get away with inexpensive things, and
Mhm.
that's great and awesome. But sometimes we got to spend a little bit more for the benefits that it gives us down the road. Like
Yep.
in the forefront, yeah, we might for the next year we might be a little heavy on this item, but after that, it's gonna reap benefits beyond what we can imagine. Then that's totally worth doing.
Yeah. And I can definitely understand that being able to talk to the business and support the business strategically on the goals that they've set out. And you as the tech person, they don't truly understand some of the ramifications of some of the decisions that they make. And you come into play and you're able to tell them, say, hey, yeah, we might save money on this tool for now, but in a year or so, we're actually going to get bombarded with so much other stuff that's going to
Yep.
inundate us and our ability to support other business units. So we might save money now, but we're going to lose more on the back end later on down the line. And
Right.
that's where you're able to come in and lay that expertise down in a manner that they actually can understand. So definitely can resonate with that.
The other thing that I had to learn, and this was hard, and it's probably hard for other people, is that if you pitch an idea or you propose a solution or you have this thought or opinion or whatever, it may not be the one that they go with. So if you
Hmm.
you propose that you're going to do this super awesome system, great, and then they come back and say, you know what, we're going to go in this other direction, don't take that personally,
Hmm.
right? I mean, you just can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
everyone's trying to row the boat in the same direction, and sometimes your ideas are going to be brought on board and in line and that kind of thing. And sometimes, for whatever reason, it could be money, it could be cost, it could just be for hurt feelings, whatever, anything under the sun. You just might not win, and
Yep.
that's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's all fine. It's all about succeeding with getting the company to succeed because when the company succeeds, everyone wins.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. At a good company, that's how it should be, right? Right. Your
Yes.
company shouldn't be succeeding and then not rewarding their people who are actually driving the day-to-day task and work.
I
Right.
kind of, apparently, I kind of work at a unicorn then because Grand River does, we treat our people really well. So,
And that's good. And I've worked at a lot of shops and I've helped out a lot of shops and I have candid conversations with people offline that work at certain shops and sometimes they tell me like, yeah, they're getting treated like a corporate slave, they're getting treated like a number.
yeah,
They're getting turned and burned, turnover is pretty crazy. But every shop is different. What I try to tell people who that's all they've known and they think that that's the industry as a whole, I tell them, say,
yeah,
no, it's really not like that. So
nope,
you might just have to step outside what you currently have right now and find somewhere else to land or somewhere that is your community that you feel valued and welcome. You shouldn't feel miserable when you come to work.
yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you, Michael, in your current role?
So I wake up, go to work, sit at my desk. I do a lot of facilitating of information.
Mhm.
That is kind of my role now. I make sure that my guys and gals who have questions or who have to work the day to day, that kind of thing, if they have questions about what they're supposed to be doing or a work request that came in, that I help them find that information. And then the other way around, if I've got other business units that have questions or comments or they want to know how they go about requesting a new hardware thing or whatever, then I help them and I tell them how that works. And we ask the preliminary questions and I interface them with somebody on my team who can ask more detailed questions. And then we just kind of do that. And we have 5+ buildings and we've got multiple production sites and we've got some heavy hitting packaging areas and equipment. So there's a lot of information that flows around that can get convoluted sometimes. I'm sure we've all played the game telephone, right? And it gets to
Yep.
the end and it's not even the same as it was in
Not
the
the same
beginning.
message.
And that is what I do a lot of time. I break down barriers and I find information and I relay information and I explain things. Very rarely do I actually touch like the normal day to day equipment or laptops or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, my team actually prefers that I don't. I tried to help once. This was a couple years ago. Um, I tried to help my team set up a laptop for a new user because we had a bunch of new users coming in. And I'm like, hey, you know what? For a while, it was just me at this company. I can do this. I will help. So I helped. And then I was told not to. Uh, my team politely requested that I don't try to help and I just keep doing what I'm doing, and that's facilitating information. So it's
Hey,
that's kind of my day-to-day stuff. And I'm going to tell you, it was hard to adjust to when you spend so many years being the guy that touches all the things and gets to see that instant gratification of, okay, this was broken and now I fixed it. Yay for
yep,
me. And now it's like, okay, I tell you this information and then you go do something and I will see the benefit of it like tomorrow or something.
yep.
It's it's an adjustment, but I wouldn't have it any other way actually. I've come to really enjoy it.
That's good because, when I transition into a director role myself, you start to see you start to see more than what you see in the trenches, right? Like are you saying, the instant gratification, get hired to do a service or do a job, you do the job, boom, you're done, you did a great job. But how does that play into the grand scheme of things? Because that project that you were working on, you have a director or a manager above where
Yep.
that's moving all the pieces on the board to help move the team towards where with the goal that you're going towards. And everyone's important. Everybody plays an important part on the
Yes.
team. But when you get into that director manager role, you really start to see, okay, oh, these are all the irons in the fire that we have that you're now managing,
Yep.
helping move forward. Well, so definitely can resonate with that. So, at Grand River, you guys are in the biomedical space, sterile injections, all that good stuff.
Yep.
What's the biggest security threat that you're seeing right now in your industry, and how are you guys combating that?
We have a lot of phishing emails that are, I everyone does, right?
Yep.
And it's like our number one thing that happens. And we've taken multiple steps to, curtail that. I don't. You're never going to be able to stop them. I don't try to, have the end all be all solution that will stop all of them. So we use Barracuda email protection and cloud backup services. The
Mhm.
Barracuda product is awesome and wonderful and amazing, and I love it. It does a really good job, but it's not perfect, and nothing will be.
Yeah.
So we've put in place notifications in our email that the senders from external, right? This
External,
sender
big,
is from
big bold
outside your
letters.
organization. Um, yeah, so we've put in those things. We've tried to do everything that we can do so that our users know, hey, this email, even though it says this name, is actually from outside the company.
Hmm.
Um, because we've gone through our fair share of spoofing and that kind of thing, display names.
Yep.
Um, but the thing that keeps coming back around goes around to the facilitating of information, right? Your human aspect, the person is always going to be your weakest point in our cybersecurity, footprint is the person. And we do our anti-phishing campaigns and a couple times a year, maybe more, maybe less, depending on how they go. And how I approach that is I never make it a negative experience for
Hmm.
people ever. I don't want to be viewed as negative. I don't want my staff and the people that I work with to be afraid of the IT department. Don't be afraid of us, right? Like if I send out a phishing campaign and this one time you clicked on the link and it brought you to the landing page that pointed out that it was a phishing campaign and here's what you should have looked for and this and that and the other, right? I don't want you to be in fear that all of a sudden you're going to get a negative mark on your review or like I'm going to show up at your desk and like demand a 5-point written essay as to why you failed. None of that. I want it to be a learning experience. So we don't do any of the negative things that sometimes you think you want it to do. And even though you don't think they're negative, they do kind of come across as negative. So, if
Yeah.
somebody messes up, hey, let's learn from the experience and then let's keep going. And I walk around a lot down. So we have multiple buildings real close together. So I'll walk around a lot and I will just check in with people and I will talk to people and I will just see how they're doing.
Yep.
Um, and it's amazing how much information you learn just by going up to somebody and say, hey, I'm glad you're here. How are you doing? Do you have everything you need? Is your setup working for you? And then
Hmm.
you can talk about different things. So sometimes people just won't put in help desk tickets. and you walk up and you're like, oh, hey, since you're here, I got this email. I'm like, great, let's talk about that email. And,
Yep.
okay, yep, the display name is this, but the email is completely weird. Let's look at other things in the email like context, grammar, like does it make sense? You
Hmm.
know, would this person normally be asking you for this? Or like this invoice, okay, you're in accounting, you get an invoice. Do we normally get invoices as an HTML attachment? Right? Do they
Yep.
normally come as a web page, or aren't they usually PDFs? You know, that
Yep.
kind of thing. And it's just building that rapport with people that helps you get accustomed to dealing with them and understanding who they are, and then you can train them better because they have a rapport and they respect you and they understand what you're doing, and so as you try to negate your cybersecurity issues, spending time with your people is one of the biggest things to do.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that. And I was just talking about this with Alfred, who's another guest on our show recently. That and he said the same thing. He likes to walk around the floor, and sometimes people they'll stop him and because he's built those relationships with them where they feel
Mhm.
comfortable to come to him with whatever said problems that they may not have felt comfortable just putting in a ticket for.
Right.
Being building that rapport and making sure that your team members know that they need to be comfortable with coming together with you whenever they if they do fall victim to a phishing email, because it's only going to get worse and worse
Yeah.
with AI. Now, like, I have been doing phishing campaigns for over 10 years, and I've been that guy who spoofs the email, makes it look crazy. I've been the guy also to I'll set up a legitimate domain email infrastructure. I'll mimic the company's
Yep.
domain and just buy a top level domain of .work because it usually works. That was my philosophy. Is like I'll email them from the
Yep.
same domain and it'll just be .work and it'll work and tell us that, hey, yeah, your Microsoft login portal is being migrated here. Just go log in here. But to sometimes people they may not see the blind like the warning factors like, hey, this person's trying to get me to give my credentials up. This says external on it. There's always going to be something that gets everybody. I myself have been gotten, and I've been a hacker for over 10 years. There is
Yeah.
a scenario for everybody. It's
Well, we're
just
human.
exactly, we're human.
Human,
So
right? So we look at all of the things and all the different stuff, and shout out to I have to shout out to one of my VPs. She got an email from a a license body, right? So we deal with licenses,
mhm,
um, where we work with the FDA and the DEA and that kind of thing. So we get licenses that we have to have occasionally, and they come email,
mhm.
and they never seem to come from any sort of legitimate looking like thing. They always every time I see one, like I'm reading it and I see it has a PDF attachment and I'm like, why does this just look weird?
Yeah.
So she flagged it as spam, and that was great. She goes, nope, this is spam. I'm not going to worry about it. And then what she did is she got involved in other conversations with other people in our compliance department or QA department or other places at Grand River, and they collectively decided based on looking at it and whether or not we were expecting a license and that kind of thing, or we had one in the past. And then they determined that it wasn't spam and it actually was legit.
Hey,
So, I mean, it goes both ways. It was
it
absolutely
does.
wonderful to see that, hey, they were cautious of it. They just out of abundance of caution, they said, yep, this is spam. And then they continued to look at it and talk about it. And then they decided that, okay, yep, this isn't spam. It's legit. We can then, put it in our files and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that me, I'm the same way, kind of like whenever if I even feel like an attachment sketch or email sketch, I'll just mark it as spam. And if it's truly legit, somebody from somewhere will escalate to me and
Yep,
come back to me, and then I'll take a look
exactly.
at it at that point in time. But if it doesn't pass the sniff test in the first 10, 15
Yeah.
seconds, then I'm not messing with it. And being the tech guy, I go even further. Sometimes our internal teams they run their own phishing campaigns, or we hire third parties that'll run phishing campaigns against us. I'll check the email headers on it and see where it's coming from.
Yep.
And then, sometimes I'll notice a header like, oh, X fish test because it's come from no before or something like that. And they're just trying to get it past the spam filters of Office. But yeah, that most people don't have the technical competency to do that. But that's what I do majority of the
Yeah.
time. But if it's fishy, I put it off to the side and I'll wait till somebody else comes back to me.
And that's what, I'll tell my users too. And I'm like, look, if it's really that important, they will ask you again.
Yep.
They will find a way to contact you and say, "Hey, I sent you this email 3 weeks ago. Did you get it?" And then you can be like, "Oh yeah, it looked weird, so I just marked it as spam. I'm sorry. Let's reconnect."
Yeah, exactly.
That kind
Like,
of thing.
let's get on the phone. Let's get on the phone to double confirm that it actually came from you. And there's been some times where, I'll get a fishy email that asking me to do something important with the deadline. And, I'm like, I make these types of emails and to give that sense of urgency and whatnot. I was like, you know what? Let me call this person out of band on a number that I know is legitimate for them and then get
Yeah,
that response. And sometimes even when I was hoping, yeah, this task was a phishing task, but it was something phishing, but it's actually no, it's something you actually need to do. You administrative, Cedric, you need to go do that.
yeah,
uh,
yeah. That happens too sometimes.
yeah, yeah. So with that being said, like, how do you go about approaching building a security conscious team and culture within Grand Rapid?
It begins with me, right? That that's all I can say. It begins with me. You lead by example.
Hmm.
Um, that is where it starts, and then from there, and it's easy things. It's simple things. It's not hard, right? Every time I get up from my laptop, I lock it, right? You lock your workstation when
Yep.
you walk away from it. It doesn't matter if you're just going to the printer to get a printout or anything.
Yep. It doesn't
Care.
matter.
You lock it in. You go next door to talk to your cubicle mate. Don't care. Lock your machine. Um,
Yep.
and so it's doing that, and then it's talking to other people, and it's pointing things out. And every time you walk into a building, you swipe your badge. You're doing it. You're showing it. You're leading by example.
Hmm.
And by leading by example, that gives you the forte or the allowance to, kind of call some people out on it.
Hmm.
And that's what I do. As I'm walking around, if I see machines that aren't locked,
Hmm.
um, I don't do anything silly. Like I don't flip their screen or anything because my people would just have to fix it anyways. But um, I'll just open Notepad and I'll just say, please lock your machine when you walk away from it, and then I lock their machine. And then
Hmm.
usually what happens is I get a team message like 10, 15 minutes later saying, I'm so sorry, I'll try to do better. Um,
Yeah,
and it's those
that's
kinds of
good.
things. We have annual cybersecurity training. Everyone has to do it. I have mixed feelings about it. Yes, it's important to do, um, and
It has
everyone
to be
needs to do
engaging.
it, but it can't be a chore.
Hmm.
So if it becomes a chore, then people will just lackadaisical go through it, and they'll say, "Hey, look, I did it. I signed off. I checked the box. Now I'm good for another 12 months." And so, really having the conversations with people is how you build that mindset, that security mindset. You can't force it on folks.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
yes, you'll get compliance, but what will also happen is you will get resentment, and then people will be in fear and all of those things. And it's like, I don't want that. I want people to want to be secure and do proper cybersecurity hygiene and that kind
Yep.
of thing. So that's kind of how I approach it. And my team does the same thing. I mean, we don't give our colleagues crap because, they messed up or they didn't think the next way is like, hey, maybe you should lock your machine, or this is why you need to lock your machine, or that doesn't matter that you're only walking 5 feet away because it took me 3 seconds to do this thing. It's just talking to people.
Yep. Yep. And most definitely, you can't force it on people because even when you force it on them, if they find any, and if you're not talking to people about some of the controls that you have in place, right, or that
Mm-hmm.
you're putting in place that's hindering them from getting their job done, most of the time they'll just find a way around it.
Right,
They'll pull out their personal phone and go to the site that they're trying to do and insert the
right.
data that they're trying to insert. But
Now I
it's,
want to make sure that even though I don't want to force people, we do enforce controls, right?
Mhm,
So like we block mass storage devices. Like if you want to
mhm,
plug your USB in, it's like that doesn't work. There's a process you have to go through to get access to do that.
yep.
Right. We do your firewall filterings and all that stuff. And there's certain things that we let people do. There's certain things that we don't let people do. But as far as building that culture, I want everyone to do it because they want to, not
Mhm.
because this person in the IT department that sits in the basement that I haven't seen, says so. It's like, who's that guy? Why does he know? Why does he get to dictate what I do on the floor over in this building that he's never been to, right? I don't want to have that reputation with folks.
Yeah, definitely can understand that. I've been in the position where I was recognized as, oh, he's the security guy. He's coming
Yep.
around. Oh, more rules coming around. Yeah, I'm trying to protect us. I'm trying to make sure we all have a job to come to tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing like what was the casinos that got hit all in a row in the same week? What was it? MGM and Caesars.
I think
Like,
so.
did you see how fast they had job roles open like the next day for helping rebuild their whole infrastructure and building out their security team? Is like, oh wow, I wonder if people are getting replaced or people are actually being onboarded for the
I
first
think it
time.
was a little bit of both.
Yeah, might have been a little bit of both because they were losing. I think total for Caesars it was like $100 million for being down in 1 week, and they paid the ransom, or was it MGM? One of them. Don't quote me on that, people. I know people are gonna hit my inbox and like, no, you're wrong. It's one of the two.
It
Um,
doesn't matter. I mean, you get hit with ransomware and you're going to lose money instantly, and then you
yep,
lose reputation. And
yep.
the reputation part, you is harder to get back.
You know, the reputation, I used to think, and the market used to dictate the damage that companies would face when they would get breached. You'd see their stock price really take a hit. But nowadays it seems like most people they just don't care anymore, even if you do get hacked. Like, yeah, you'll lose like a little blip from for a little bit, but the stock prices for most organizations that I've been keep tracking have been pretty relatively stable. Like if you think about United Healthcare, like they barely took a hit and they paid a ransom twice.
Yeah, we
uh
I hold the reputation of Grand River very, very high, and I intend to do everything I can to keep it that way.
yep,
Our clients care, and I know they care because of the questions they ask, the assessments we do, the audits we have, all of that stuff.
yep,
Um, and I don't want to have to sit in front of somebody and explain to them what happened that caused their data that they entrusted to us to
hmm,
end up out in the wild, right? I don't
yep,
want to have that conversation.
yeah,
So, I care more about our reputation than, I guess a little bit about our money because money we can get back. We have cybersecurity insurance, right?
yep,
We can make more product, we can send more invoices, that kind of thing. But I don't want Graham's reputation to be soiled
yep.
from a breach or anything like that.
Yep, yep. And I can definitely resonate with that because me personally, as the person who does vetting for some of the third parties that we work together with, um, I'm asking about your previous history. I'm Googling you, I'm doing research to
Yep.
see like what's happened. I'm looking on the dark web. Maybe you got popped and you don't even know about it yet. But if there was ever like a comparison between going with one vendor versus the other, and the only difference was one got hacked and one didn't. Depending on how they got hacked, I'm most likely
Yep.
going to go with the company that didn't get hacked. But that's not the decision that would make every time because not to say that the company that didn't get hacked has a good cybersecurity posture or the right
Right.
policies and procedures in place. But it also comes in what also comes into play is how did the company that did get how did they respond? Did
Oh,
they address
absolutely.
their clients? Were they very transparent about what was compromised and what all their investigation has uncovered? Did they do their due diligence to make sure that they're offering the right remedies to the affected parties? Things along those lines, because sometimes that can actually give me a little bit more faith into a company's ability to respond to an
Yep.
event and remediate an event because you've seen what has happened.
Yeah, the incident itself is big and it's a big problem. But like you said, what can be more is how did you respond to it?
Hmm. I just thought about this isn't a cyber incident, but I just want to get your thoughts regarding the whole CrowdStrike debacle. What does it
So
change ago?
I'm a little old school and we don't actually have a lot of things in the cloud. So CrowdStrike happened, everybody lost VMs. and they lost money because they were down and this and that and the other. And Grand River just went on like it was another day. So,
Yeah.
and it's like, we may have had some minor email interruptions or whatever, but yeah, it didn't affect us hardly anything at all. It sucks. It sucks a lot because you trust a vendor to do a thing, and everyone buys in, and they got a lot of market share, and
Yep.
they're heavily integrated into all this stuff, and then something goes wrong on their end, and all of a sudden everybody stops.
Yep. And that was a very big eye opener because a lot of people were calling it a cyber attack at first. And if it was, that would have been one of the greatest, I would say one of the greatest supply chain attacks behind SolarWinds.
Yeah,
But it was just a failed due diligence on an update. I don't care what they say, but nobody looked at that update for that specific
nope.
version because you would have realized that it
And it
breaks.
just and again, it just goes back to show you that some of the most horrific incidences or widespread incidences or that kind of thing aren't always caused by the super nefarious action by somebody. It can
Mhm.
be the simplest, cleanest, most innocent sounding thing like doing an update that ends up bricking half the world.
Yep. And leaving people stranded in airports
Yeah,
all around the world, in train stations all around the world, just hundreds of millions of dollars in damages, just
yeah. and
lost business.
and
That
the
is just
eye-opening
crazy.
aspect of that, you should pay attention to it.
Yep. And I'm sure a lot of those companies they realized, like, all right, yeah, we're going to get this money back from CrowdStrike. And then they realized, oh, wait, CrowdStrike had a clause in their contract that said, oh, pretty much we can't get nothing back.
Yeah.
And you see how Delta responded to that. They actually officially filed suit, if I recall correctly, a couple weeks ago, um, stemming from that incident. And CrowdStrike and Delta were going back and forth, because they offered Delta help
Yep.
to respond or remediate, and Delta apparently declined, and they actually had a prolonged remediation period than majority of the other airlines that were affected. And now CrowdStrike kind of they didn't really say it, but they kind of said it in so many words like it was your IT processes and your plans that you guys had that you weren't ready for something like this to happen. And when it did happen, you didn't know how to respond. And even when we offered help, you really didn't want to take
Right.
our so it's like I get where CrowdStrike's coming from, and I get where Delta's coming from. So it's kind of like it's kind of
It's
like
just
that
a mess.
Spider-Man, that one meme. You ever seen that Spider-Man meme where they're like the Spider-Man's pointing at another Spider-Man?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it's you.
It's just going to be a mess when those things happen, and
Yep.
that's just the nature of things. So really, you need to come back to what's in my control, what can I control, and how can I control it, and is
Yep.
it feasible to control it? And that's where you start. I mean, yeah, okay, putting things in the cloud is great, but it's on somebody else's server and somewhere else.
Yep.
So it's fine to do that, but you got to be prepared for not having access to that service.
Yep. And what are you going to do when you don't have access or if you have to roll a truck? Well, work together with the CSP to help remediate
Yep.
thousands of machines at once. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy time to work through. At first, I had a lot of clients we had to help out with just trying to help them resolve that blue screen of death. But CrowdStrike, I commend them though on the response and giving us the actionable steps to remediate that blue screen of death and just being there for majority of the clients.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
they
good,
handled
good to see. Good to see that they owned up to it. And they took the failed award at what was it, DEF CON or Black
it.
Hat. It was very good to see that humility because most companies nowadays you don't really see that. They just try to sweep it under the rug
Yeah,
and just keep going about their business and not really caring about the little guys per se. But in reality, to be honest, this was more than just the little guys, little shops that were affected. It was from the little shops all the way to the Fortune 10s.
yeah, yeah. It was insane. And then they messed up airports, and once you mess up airfare, then you're done.
Critical infrastructure. You got to deal with the government now,
Yep.
all the governments per se. You got the
Yep.
governments in the EU, the governments in America, governments all over the place because you're messing up with the global economy at that point, pretty
Yeah.
much. Mm. So What's one piece of advice you would give to other security leaders?
So the advice that I have for everyone, and not just security leaders, is the old adage of, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. That is true.
Mhm.
So cybersecurity is really big, and it's this monster of a beast, and it has fangs out the wazoo, and no
Mhm.
matter what you do with it, you're going to get screwed. So yes, that is true to a certain extent. But just put that out of your mind and just start small. Start with what you can control. What can you do that has the biggest impact but the smallest footprint on your user base? And do that, right? So if you're just starting in the field, or you're starting at a company, and you see that there's some improvements that can be made, great. Don't go after the heavy hitting ones first. Do the small ones first.
Mhm.
Like passwords. Start with passwords. Multi-factor authentication, which is a little questionable now, but it's a good thing to start with. Passwords. If you're running Active Directory, you can enforce a longer password, and it
Mhm.
won't cost you anything.
Yep.
So start with that.
Yep.
Implement, password history, those types of things.
Yep.
Um, there is low hanging fruit that doesn't require you to spend $30,000 a year on this service or that service, or that
Yep.
kind of thing. Just start small. And that's where I did. I started small because I had to.
Mhm.
When we started doing our cybersecurity road trip, we started with passwords. We had 8. We went to multi-digit, and then we did multi-factor, and then we have history and complexity and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
that's what I could do because we
Yep.
didn't have money to invest hardcore into these fancy cybersecurity platforms. That's what
Mhm.
I could control. And then we brought on anti-spam, and then we upgraded our endpoint protection
Mhm.
software over the years. We went from Trend Micro to Carbonite to Sentinel One, and we're using Fluency for our SIEM and all these things. But we didn't have that in the beginning.
Yep.
We did it as we could, and that's okay. It's okay to do things slowly as budget and buy-in and that kind of thing. You can get. You just pick your priorities. What can you control? What can you do with the least amount of people and the smallest interruption? Start there.
Yep.
You just have to start somewhere, and that's what I have for folks. Is like, yes, all these shiny tools are great and amazing, and the graphs are pretty, but you will get there. You just
Yep.
have to start small.
And what I try to tell people sometimes too is that, especially when it comes to investing in fancy tools and whatnot, the tools, you got to think about it. They are trying to solve a problem. And most of the times, a lot of these tools, they're built on tools that are available for free already out there. They just put a nice wrapper around it with a graphical user interface.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there may be some proprietary logic underneath there where, you can't really replicate with any other tools in an easy fashion. But like you said, take it one step at a time, see what you can do with what's free and open source out there first, and then you find when you figure out the real need for a certain tool and you have a business case, then you work your way up to that. Um, we've got a few minutes here left here on the show. Well, I got a couple last questions for you. This one's more tailored towards, career advice that you would give to someone that's, starting out in their journey in IT or cybersecurity. What advice would you give to them?
Patience. Be patient. When I started, I did what is common to a lot of people, and I looked at the dollars. It's like,
Mhm.
what do I have to do to get more money the fastest?
Yep.
Um, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I would have taken a little bit more time and learned a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, but just be patient. If you go to college and you get a computer systems degree or whatever, yeah, you might be lucky and you might end up jumping right into a sysadmin role. Good for you. More than likely, you're going to start in a help desk position and you'll be there for a few years, and then you'll be able to move into, a sysadmin position or whatever. And
Mhm.
that's okay. It's fine. It's okay. It's good. It's good for you if you're just starting out to learn all of the steps,
Yep. Build
because
that
as you
foundation.
get higher up and further along into your career, and you're starting to make policies and procedures that affect 50 to hundreds of people, it's
Mhm.
good for you to understand how they do their job so that you can better put in policies that they will actually buy into.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And I try to tell that to anybody who I mentor because I mentor a lot of individuals. Patience is key. When I first broke in the field, I was looking at the dollar signs too. But
Yep.
then I realized it's like if you really want those dollar signs, you gotta really understand the who, what, why, where, how, and when, right? And
Yeah.
you don't get that unless you truly immerse yourself into the topics that you're looking to become that subject matter expert in, right? You got to
Yep.
fall in love with learning because every day there's
Yep.
something new coming out. And if you're not willing to continuously learn, you're gonna get burnt out in this field quickly. And that's what I try to tell anybody I mentor. So have that patience. Understand there's always gonna be something new coming out. Don't feel discouraged because you feel like you don't know everything or you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. We're all drinking from fire hose. I use
Yep.
Google practically every single day. Like
Absolutely.
I'm looking things up all the time, even things that I've learned about that I've been certified in. Like I forget maybe the
Yep.
details or intricacies or the nuances, and I have to refresh myself. And that's why they have a thing called continuing professional education because
Oh,
you're not gonna just remember everything. We're not computers.
yeah.
Uh,
So that's the biggest thing that I can tell folks.
hmm. That's good. So when you're Michael, so kind of switch gears here a little bit. So when you're not fighting cyber threats, what do you enjoy doing for fun?
I have a farm.
You have a
Uh,
farm?
yes,
Oh,
yes. So my day job is technology, and my night job is I have a hobby farm. My wife and I, we have a hobby farm called Highland Hobby Farm. It is a shameless plug. We do have a YouTube channel, um, and we have a live stream camera that looks out part of our pasture. So occasionally you'll see cows wandering past it and chickens and that kind of thing. And we have Highland Scottish cows.
okay.
So they are the fluffy cows of the world. Everyone knows them as the fluffy cows, and we love them, and they're great, and they're wonderful and amazing. And we're just starting our fold, so we have five. We have five, and we'll get, we'll breed and have more, and then we'll do beef and that kind of thing. Um, and the Scottish Highland cows came about partially because I am the pipe major for the Montcalm County Honor Guard Pipes and Drums up here in Michigan. So
Hmm.
I play the bagpipes, and
Okay.
I lead a band, and my wife is the drum sergeant, so she plays the snare drum, and we have pipers and drummers and tenor drummers, and that's what we do. We farm and we play bagpipes.
Hey, that's awesome. I'm a big music fan. I love all different types of instruments. I listen to a lot of house music, rock. I love seeing the magic that can be made, behind some of these instruments. Music is a very powerful thing. It can elicit a lot of
Yeah,
different types of emotions and chemical reactions inside your brain. So I'm a big music head. You probably can't see it here. You can't see it to the camera, but my office, I have 12-inch subwoofers and speakers and vocals and monitors all in here. So
wonderful.
whenever I'm not in meetings or on calls and I'm focused on, either focused on putting together some scripts or accomplishing a task, I'm blasting music and I'm vibing out. And sometimes you can see me on Instagram, shameless plug. It seems never live streaming though, but you probably catch me every now and then. But thank you so much, Michael, for coming on the show and sharing your incredible insights and experience with us
Yeah,
today.
this was great.
It's been a pleasure, for our listeners. You can find Michael on what LinkedIn and
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, Michael Maitner. They
Yep.
got your name spelling in the show. And as far as for like your YouTube channel, if you want to plug that in there and let them know where they can catch those bagpipes and as well as if they want to live stream some of the farm activity.
Yeah. Yeah. So Highland Hobby Farm,
Mhm.
and we have a fun little logo, and we are just low key, no fancy editing. You kind of
Mhm.
get what you get, and that kind of thing.
I
Because let's
got
face it, I don't got time for that.
anybody got time for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. I do.
Yeah. I love that. I usually use the abbreviation with some of my coworkers. They ain't got time, and we use that
Yeah.
meme
It's
all
a
the
great
time.
meme. I love it.
Well, all right, guys. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the CNL podcast for more conversations with IT and security leaders like Michael. Until next time, stay safe, stay secure.